Good morning. Let us start the class with the discussion of the exercises which I gave you as assignment yesterday. First one is based on idiomatic expressions. And the first question, I was not unmindful of the fact. You might have gone through the textbook to get the remaining part of the sentence, and this he refers to the African generals and when they saluted him. And the right option is the first one, had not forgotten or was aware of the fact how they treated him when he was a normal citizen. Then second one, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits. This refers to Nelson Mandela and the other African patriots who were enduring immense amount of suffering when they were tortured by the guards. So the right option is third one, felt that we could not endure the suffering any longer. Then next one, to reassure me and keep me going. That part comes when he met a guard who was kind enough maybe for 1 or 2 moments. So the right option is help me continue. The second one, help me continue to live in hope in this very difficult situation. And the fourth one, the basic and honorable freedoms of earning my keep. The right option is earning enough money to live on. So hope it is clear. And next is a speaking task. Since in this condition we can't go for a speaking task, you can convert it into, take it as a writing task. So what you are asked is about this topic. True liberty is freedom from poverty, deprivation, and all forms of discrimination. You can write this as the heading in your notebook and write your suggestions under these subheadings. Don't go for lengthy descriptive answering. Just go for the points one by one. Under causes of poverty and means of overcoming it, what can be done with that? And you can write 1, 2, 3, 4 and then write down the points there. Then again, discrimination based on gender, your suggestions based on that, and similarly the third point. Then next is based on contrast, the sentences that we find in the lesson written by Nelson Mandela, where he offers sentences which suggest contrasting ideas. The first task was to complete the sentences given there. First one, it requires such depths of oppression. Option 5, to create such heights of character. Then the second one, courage was not the absence of fear. Third option, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid. Fourth option, but he who conquers that fear. Then if people can learn to hate, first option, they can be taught to love. Then the last one, I was not born with a hunger to be free. Second option, I was born free. And then we have the balancing sentences used by Nelson Mandela is, if you observe it closely, it consists of clauses. He has used coordinate clauses. So what is a clause? It's a group of words consisting of a subject and a verb. And what is a coordinate clause? One of 2 or more clauses in a sentence that are of equal importance and joined by either or but, or and. And a simple example is given there. I went to the market and bought some vegetables. So here we have two clauses. What is a clause? You have a subject I here and went is the verb. So that is one clause. And the next one, again the same subject applies here and bought is the verb here. And so two clauses are joined by and the conjunction. And so, and also note that these two clauses are of equal importance. I went to the market and bought some vegetables. Both are of equal importance. Now, back to the exercise. The first one over there. For decades, the union buildings had been the seat of white supremacy, and now you're asked to complete the remaining part. It was a site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. And you're asked to highlight the words that denote the contrast. See here, for decades and now. For decades and now, that offers contrasting. Those are the words used to suggest the contrast. Now, next question. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and the police saluted me and pledged their loyalty. Not so many years before, they would not have saluted but arrested me. And the contrast of words are only moments before and many years before. Next one. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem, they would soon know the words by heart. And the contrasting words, that day and they would soon know. That day they neither group knew the anthem, but they would soon know it, the lyrics by heart. Now, fourth one. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil. The remaining part of the sentence, but I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. So the words that show contrast is, my country is rich in the minerals and gems, and its greatest wealth is its people. Those are the contrasting words. Now the last, fifth one. The air show was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. The words showing contrast are not only and but. Then, last one. It was this desire for the freedom of my people that transformed a frightened man into a bold one, that drove a law-abiding attorney to become a criminal, that turned a family-loving husband into a man without a home. Here you can take, it was this desire, then go for that transformed, that drove, that turned. All these offer different ideas. Now back to the first exercise, which we left out in the beginning. Regarding these expressions, hope you have a clear idea about what these expressions mean. First one, a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations. The right option is a beautiful coming together of various peoples like the colors in a rainbow. Then second one, the seat of white supremacy, the center of racial superiority. Then be overwhelmed with a sense of history, feeling deeply emotional, remembering and understanding all the past events that have led up to the moment. Fourth one, resilience that defies the imagination. The first option, a great ability to remain unchanged by suffering. a glimmer of humanity. Third option, a sign of human feeling. And the last one, a twilight existence, a half-secret like a life lived in the fading light between sunset and darkness. So with that, we come to the end of Nelson Mandela. Now we move on to the next poem, A Tiger in the Zoo. Okay. This poem is written by Leslie Norris, where he is full of concern for the tiger which is caged in a zoo. And in the poem, he brings in the contrast between the tiger in the cage, how it suffers, how his strength is locked, how helpless he is. And he offers the picture of the tiger in its natural habitat, how free he is, how he enjoys freedom. And to bring in the contrast clearly to you, now let us watch a video. I'm sorry I couldn't show you the other video where the tiger is put in a cage and he walks impatiently. So let us get into the poem. A Tiger in the Zoo by Leslie Norris. He stalks in his vivid strides a few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet. In his quiet, sorry for the interruption. I couldn't show you one more video which presents a tiger in a cage. And now let us get into the poem. A Tiger in the Zoo, written by Leslie Norris. He stalks in his vivid strides a few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. So first stanza, it describes the tiger in the cage. He stalks is to walk angrily or stiffly in his vivid, clear stripes. You know, the tiger's body is striped with black and yellow. And so he walks stiffly, angrily in the cage. A few steps of his cage. The cage is too small, so he couldn't walk much. On pads of velvet quiet. So you have seen the paws of a tiger, or you can take the example of a cat. It is padded. So it walks, it puts the pressure on of the body on these pads and walks noiselessly in his quiet rage. Of course, the tiger is so furious because it is locked down. Its strength is useless in the cage, and so he's so impatient and full of rage, but he seems to be so quiet, but at the same time, he's furious. Now the second stanza shifts to the tiger in the jungle. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass, near the water hole where plump deer pass. So this tiger, which is locked in the cage, he should be lurking in the shadow. He should be roaming or taking cover in shady places and would be seen sliding through the long grass, as we saw in the video, near the water hole, near the pool where the plump deer pass. Of course, he knows that the deer would certainly come there to quench its thirst. And so he's waiting near the tall, long grass which grows thickly near the water hole. Water hole stands for a pool of water. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. And this same tiger who is locked inside the cage, he should be snarling. Snarling is showing his the face of a tiger when it gets really angry. Snarling around houses at the jungle's edge. At times, the tigers in the jungle would step out of the jungle and would take a walk into the neighboring places of the jungle. So just the same way, this tiger comes out of the jungle and it's seen snarling around houses at the jungle's edge. How does he snarl? Baring his white fangs, showing his white teeth and his claws. The tiger, when he becomes furious, the claws comes out of its paw. So baring is showing his white fangs, his claws, and that way he's terrorizing, trying to terrorize the villagers. Then back to the tiger in the cell or in the zoo. But he's locked in a concrete cell. In the paragraphs just we went through, we discussed about the plight of the tiger in the jungle. And this same tiger, what is his plight now? His condition, he's locked in a concrete cell, a concrete room, a small room. His strength behind the bars, his strength is useless behind the bars. and stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. So many people come daily to watch this tiger, to see this tiger, but he is least bothered about them, and he is so impatient and restless in his cage and moves in the limited space of the cage. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. And when night comes, he can hear the last voice of the patrolling cars. Patrolling cars are cars in which the guards of the zoo come during night or daytime to take rounds whether everything is keeping fine or everything is going well. And so he hears the last sound of the patrolling cars, and he is helpless with staring at the brilliant stars at the sky with his brilliant eyes. So this tiger's eyes are compared to the brilliance of the stars, because it is so powerful that it can spot a prey at a very long distance, and then it is even though the prey is camouflaged in the surroundings, it can spot its prey very clearly. And so the brilliance of the eyes is compared to the brilliance of the stars, and he observed the stars helplessly in his cage. So Leslie Norris seems to be full of concern for the plight of the tiger. He tries to pass on the message to the readers that tigers and such animals are not to be locked inside the cage. They are to be left free, and only then we can conserve the species. I hope the poem is clear. And now let us move on to the exercises. Here I have an image of a snarling tiger. You can see the snarling tiger with the fangs. It has put out the fangs, and this is how it looks like when it snarls. Now the first question, read the poem again and work in pairs or groups to do the following tasks. Find the words that describe movements and actions of the tiger in the cage and in the wild, and you are asked to arrange them in 2 columns. And find the words that describe the 2 places, that is the zoo and the jungle, and the words that suggest that this is zoo. This stanza deals with zoo, and the other stanza deals with the jungle, and arrange them in 2 columns. So that is what I have done here. So, in the first stanza, we get the word stalks. That's the only word that we can find throughout the poem regarding movement when it is in the zoo. And when it is in the jungle, you can see him sliding through the long grass and lurking in the shady places, waiting for its prey. So this is the only word that you get regarding movement when the tiger is in the zoo. And in the jungle, you can go for slides and lurks, sliding and lurking in the poem. And regarding the words of action, while in the zoo, you can see him in quiet rage. It is furious, but it is not making any noise, but it is obvious from its behavior the moment that the tiger is furious. Again, it ignores visitors. Then the last one, stares at the stars. Similarly, in the jungle, You get the word snarling, baring his white fangs and claws. Now the next task, to find words that describe the zoo. Under zoo we get the few steps of its cage. Again, concrete cell. Then behind bars. Then you can find the patrolling cars in which the guards roam through the zoo. Now under jungle, lurking in the shadow, shady places, it would be hiding itself. Then sliding through long grass. Then water hole, snarling around houses, terrorizing the village. So these are the words that suggest places. Now back to the text. Now second question, notice the use of a word repeated in lines such as these. First instance, on pads of velvet quiet, in his quiet rage. The word quiet is repeated in these lines. What is the purpose of repetition? It is just to emphasize the fact that the tiger is quiet. It is not expressing its anger, but it is suppressing its anger and in a quiet rage. So the technique of repetition is used for emphasizing or stressing a particular thing. Next one, again we find the word brilliant being repeated, and stares with the brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Both the eyes of the tiger and the stars are known for its brilliance, and so to suggest or to emphasize the brilliance, the word is repeated in these lines. Then the third question, read the following two poems, one about a tiger and the other about the panther. Then discuss, are zoos necessary for the protection or conservation of some species of animals? Are they useful for educating public? Are there alternatives to zoos? So these are the questions you need to answer. Now let us go through this poem quickly. The tiger. The tiger behind the bars of his cage growls. The tiger behind the bars of his cage snarls. The tiger behind the bars of his cage roars. Then he thinks. So first he shows his impatience by growling and snarling and roaring. Then he waits for a moment and thinks, it would be nice not to be behind bars all the time. So how nice it would be if they would have let me free. Because they spoil my view, I can't enjoy the beautiful scenery. I wish I were wild, not on show, not on display. How I wish to roam freely in the jungle. But if I were wild, hunters might shoot me. Now he looks at the other side of the same scenario. But if I were wild, food might poison me. But if I were wild, water might drown me. Then he stops thinking and he succumbs to his present condition. The tiger behind the bars of his cage growls. The tiger behind the bars of his cage snarls. The tiger behind the bars of his cage roars. And that's a poem by Peter Niblett. Now, the last poem on the panther. His vision from the constantly passing bars has grown so weary that it cannot hold anything. It seems to him there are 1,000 bars, and behind the bars, no world. So in both cases, the tiger and the panther are caged, and in this case, panther can see only bars, and it had been seeing the bars constantly for maybe years, and so he can't see anything else but the bars in front of him, and no world can be seen. As he paces in cramped circles over and over, the movement of his powerful, soft strides is like a ritual dance around a center in which a mighty will stands paralyzed. So when you watch the video, you saw how fast the tiger run after the deer, and also once he spot a prey, he is determined to get it some way or other. So that such a determined tiger is locked behind the bars, and his strength is of no use there. And so he goes on in circle because the cage is so small for him, and it seems like a ritual dance. And a mighty will stands paralyzed. His will is of no use there. Only at times the curtain of the pupils lift quietly. An image enters in, rushes down through the tensed, arrested muscles, plunges into heart, and is gone. Only once in a while, the tiger senses something before him, senses an image, and it enters. He realizes that maybe a human being or any other animal, and his natural instinct is aroused just to run and pounce on it. But he realizes that it's of no use, and it plunges into that instinct, just goes down, and he remains still. So based on these two, you have gone through 3 poems altogether, and you have to write again a writing task based on this. Are zoos necessary for protection or conservation of some species of animals? And are they useful for educating public? Present your views in a paragraph, not more than that. A paragraph would do, and not a descriptive answer, but point-wise answers. I think that will do for the day, and thank you.